The great sacred bird flies from the east. That is good. According to the red man, the eagle is a god, and he keeps away the evil ones who would inflict disaster upon Mother Earth. Only the sacred eagle has the power to hold back clouds, the wind, thunder, the snow and lightning, especially the lightning, for nothing gives more fear to the Indian than death from lightning. Many Navajos still wear turquoise beads in their hair to keep from being struck. But today, the sacred eagle is soaring high over Navajo land. There can be no storm today. From where the sacred eagle flies, you can see much of Navajo land. All of this was created by many gods. According to Navajo legend, there once were 12 lower worlds, one above the other, and the creatures who inhabited these lower worlds climbed up through hollow reeds onto the earth. The sacred birds, the great bald eagles, are not to be disturbed. Their young ones, alone in the nest, may not even be looked upon for too long, or it will anger their parents, who now fight in midair for possession of a small fish. The sacred one feeds first. That is the way it should be, while the young ones watch and wait to be fed. They wait, too, until their claws are big enough for hunting and fighting. The Navajo has learned much by watching the animals' ways. But there are evil ones among the animals, too. Creatures that would destroy the sacred eagles who bring good to Mother Earth. One evil creature is the cottontail. The Navajo believes this rabbit associates with the devil because cottontails sometimes live in crevices where burials have been made. So, it is right and good that the sacred eagle should destroy the evil one. Most Navajos will not harm a cougar, or a bear, or snake, or any other living creature without some purpose. But if the cougar should hurt the sacred one, then he becomes evil. That is the legend. Folks out here call it Cougar Canyon. Of course, not too many people get to see much of this country. It's pretty well left to the Indians and the animals. You see, even today, there are no roads into either Canyon de Chelly or Canyon del Muerto. So if you ride a horseback in here as far as Spider Rock, you may spot a raccoon playing around the water hole. Not too many other visitors, except for Navajos, of course. Usually you won't see them. Looks like the Cougar's finished his meal and is headed for the water hole, too. Now, usually a sensible raccoon would take off for the hills as soon as a mountain lion showed up. But this guy seems to know the Cougar just ate and probably will leave him alone. Cougar seems a little puzzled with all the playing around going on. But raccoons love to wash things in water and examine everything with their claws. They love having fun, too. Now, he's not digging a burrow. No, he lives in a hollow log upstream. But digging is fun, too, for a raccoon. The Cougar just can't figure out that character. But all he cares about right now is getting a drink before moving on up the canyon. You know, it's strange out here the way Indian legends often seem to come true. The sacred eagle died. Now the gods of wind and rain are angry. That's the way the Indian would explain it. Very few white men have seen these waterfalls, for they only exist when it rains hard on the desert above the canyon, and flash floods pour over the walls. Usually the waterfalls last for only a few minutes, then they're gone again. Child of the water. That's what the Navajo call one of two twin war gods. The other is the slayer of giants. Both twin gods are good, and together they destroyed the monsters that once inhabited the world, according to legend. After a rainfall, the streams run strong. And one animal you're sure to find along the grassy bank is the black-footed ferret. This little dude almost became extinct in many parts of the West around 1970. He was getting caught in traps set for predators and dying from poison set out for cougars and wolves. Here, though, in Cougar Canyon, his biggest enemies are the predators themselves. This time, it's not a cougar, but a gray wolf close by, listening to the squabble going on. Those two are so tied up fighting over their meal neither one of them seems to notice the birds and other animal sounds have stopped. And that can mean just one thing: trouble's near. The predator has taken his prey. Cougar Canyon is home for predators of all kinds, so smaller animals must stay alert if they're to survive. Of course, the chief predator out here is the cougar, and if you happen to be a badger just starting to dig a new home, you'd better be prepared to either run or bluff your way through, which is exactly what this guy must plan to do. Yep, looks like he intends to play it tough. Badger may be small in size compared to a cougar, but he sure makes up for it in spirit. He can be a savage fighter, too, using his teeth and claws to great advantage. He's a tough little critter, isn't he? I'll bet that cougar's wishing about now that he hadn't been so darn curious. The cougar just can't figure it out. After all, everybody's supposed to be afraid of a mountain lion, but not this guy. Yep, he's sure got spirit. That guy's just not very sociable. Not all predators out here are large animals. There are birds of prey, too. The hawk is one of them. He's got the keenest eyesight of any living creature on Earth. This hawk is watching a rattlesnake over 100 yards away. His eyes have 8 times the resolving power of the human eye, and he can focus in on his prey with extremely accurate perception while flying at high speeds. hawk has incredible flying ability. Some have been known to dive at speeds up to 275 miles per hour with perfect maneuvering. The hawk will glide around in wide circles to size up his prey before moving in for the kill. If the target is a deadly rattlesnake, the hawk will sense the danger, moving in slowly and carefully. He picks a tall tree right above his prey to get a good look at his target and to give him the height he needs for his dive. Sometimes he may make one or two dives first to confuse the snake. Then he soars around again, this time for the attack. The hawk must have quick reactions too, especially when taking on a rattlesnake. One strike of the snake's fangs, and the hawk will die within a few minutes. The hawk's talons are tools for killing. If he can get the snake behind the head, the talons contract, driving into the body of the snake and killing him instantly. Like it or not, every predator has one main purpose in life. He must kill to survive. Last night, a deer was eaten here by a pack of wolves. Now the smell of food attracts a black bear. The cougar's not far behind. It's been some time since he had a meal. Now he's hungry again. Life is not easy for any of the predators. Day and night they must search for food, and many times they go hungry. Hungry or not, if there's a bad time to try to sneak up on a bear, it's when he's eating. The bear's eyesight may not be much good, but his sense of smell and hearing are perfect. size bigger than he looks. He must weigh around 300 pounds. Black bears can be pretty darned ornery when they get riled up. Well, like they say, if you're not as big, you got to make lots more noise. It doesn't look like our Cougar's getting anywhere, trying to convince this bear of just how tough he can be. Uh-oh. I'm afraid the old bear figures he's taken just about enough badgering from a cougar. I don't think he's going to put up with it for too much longer. The cougar's making a real nuisance of himself, dropping in at mealtime like this, uninvited. So this bear may just have to teach him some manners. To the Navajo, the bear is a symbol of fear. Other creatures, real or imagined, represent fear also. Like the monster spider that carries away children who don't mind their parents. He lives on top of this rock, Spider Rock. Not all fears of the Indian are imagined, though. In the dry, rocky parts of the canyon, a very real fear is the deadly diamondback rattlesnake, which often grows to 6 foot or longer. He's deadly to man and also to other animals, like a hungry cougar. The cougar's mind is mostly on finding something to eat right now. But he hears the rattles and knows by instinct that danger's close by. He hasn't spotted the rattler yet, but the sound makes him cautious and, unfortunately, curious. The snake will strike at any quick movement, and he's very sensitive to the body warmth of the nearby cougar. One step closer, just one wrong step now, will cost the cougar his life. But the feeling of hunger has started to affect his judgment. His reactions are slowing, too. Not all of the predators live down inside Cougar Canyon. Most of them range throughout all of Navajo land, including the area just northwest of Canyon de Chelly, known as Monument Valley. This is the region usually shown in photographs of the Navajo reservation. It's this part of Navajo land, above the canyon, that tourists usually visit. Life for the Navajos a lot different up here than on the floor of the canyon. Of course, the Indians still raise sheep and goats, like all Navajo families. The old Navajo sheep is the only breed of its kind in the United States. They were brought to this country by the early Spanish. Many of them have 4 horns instead of just 2. The Navajo's wealth is counted in sheep, cattle, horses, silver, and turquoise, with the sheep regarded as the most important. During the winter months, when the snow falls deep in the canyon, Navajo families pile all their possessions into their wagons, close up their homes, and herd their sheep and goats up here to the highlands to wait out the cold winter. You might say the sheep herd is the very center of a Navajo family's existence. Navajo rug weavers use the wool of their special breed of sheep to weave beautiful rugs for selling to the nearest trading post or in exchange for flour, coffee, sugar, or lard. The goats provide milk for the family. And, of course, the herds provide meat, too. Navajos up here dress up quite a bit to pose for cameras of tourists who visit Monument Valley year-round. Yes, life is much different up here than down inside Cougar Canyon. Exposure to the white man's civilization has changed the lives of these people, while down inside the canyon itself, life goes on very much as it did 100 years ago. Everywhere on the Navajo Reservation, which covers 16 million acres, you'll find Indians living in hogans, the old traditional Navajo home, built of logs and covered with dirt. The hogan's always a one-room house with a dirt floor, no windows, and a door that always faces east. An open fire pit in the center of the hogan is used for both cooking and heating, with a hole in the roof to let the smoke escape and let light inside. The red earthen hogans blend in so well with this magnificent red rock country, a white man could travel many miles through Navajo land and never see one. scenic wonders are everywhere on the reservation. To the Navajo people, nature has always played a vital role in their everyday lives. They've given names to the thunder and the wind and rain. To the Indian, they're gods, and each one is very important to their religious beliefs and ceremonies. The Indian is never blind to nature. As a child, he's taught to respond to all of nature around him. In the grass, the tiny blue broken cup of a robin's egg tells the Navajo that in a world of loss and grief, hope is forever born again. The Indian knows that if you make room for beauty, you cast out ugliness. When evening comes, many of the predators set out to hunt for food. In this untamed land, the Indian shares his territory with wild creatures of all kinds, including the wild pig or boar. Now, a boar may not be the biggest or the most ferocious-looking animal our cougar friend might encounter, but he's a lot meaner than he appears. He has a set of teeth that could tear a cougar apart if provoked enough. By this time, the cougar's really ready to eat again, but he'd better watch his step with this meal. The boar's not afraid of the cougar, just annoyed a little. The cougar's one predator who's a real expert at sizing up his prey. Usually he'll take on a weak, old, or lame animal, unless he can catch a strong one like this boar by surprise. If it wasn't for his hunger, Cougar wouldn't bother with this guy. He'd just walk away and leave him alone. But it's been many hours now since he caught the eagle, so he can't let any opportunity pass by. The predator's life is never easy. Day in and day out, he must hunt to find whatever animals he can, or he himself will soon go hungry and die. It sometimes looks like a game, the cougar circling around, stalking his prey. But actually, it's much more than that. With the cougar, it's a matter of life or death. And if he should get seriously injured taking on the wrong animal, he'll be unable to hunt at all and will surely become the helpless victim of some other predator with nobody to come to his aid. Sometimes an encounter between two animals like this may last for hours, with neither one letting up for a moment. To the casual observer, it may seem that the two enemies are really just playing. But nature has a purpose in it all, for only in this way will we see the survival of the fittest take place, with the weaker animals being replaced by the stronger ones, and all species slowly becoming more refined. The antelope becomes more swift, the deer more alert, the bighorn sheep more keen of sight, the wild pig more vicious and quick, the cougar more wise. Dinner again must wait. The life of the predator is a hard, hungry one. Man is not a recent addition to Cougar Canyon. For thousands of years, he's built his homes here. The early inhabitants were the prehistoric Pueblo Indians, who built huge cities in the cliffs far above the floor of the canyon. They built their Pueblo cities up high for protection from outside invaders, and they had to climb the cliffs to bring water and food from the canyon. Many of the legends started here, in ancient ceremonies held in round pits dug into the ground and covered with logs, called kivas. Even the painted designs on the walls of the kiva had a religious significance. The great cliff cities were never occupied by ancestors of today's Navajo tribe. They were built by the ancient ones, who Navajos today called Anasazi. These ancient ones lived up here until the year 1300, when a prolonged dry period parched the land, lasting many years, forcing the inhabitants to abandon their great cliff cities and leave the canyon forever. Today, the remains of their pottery and tools and fiber weaving have been slowly pieced together by archaeologists trying to learn all they can about the mysterious lives of the ancient ones. They wove many baskets of yucca fiber. Some were so finely woven, they could actually hold water. They also wore sandals, which they wove from yucca fibers. Today, the Navajo will not venture into certain ruins. It is forbidden. Only the wandering predator is free to go anywhere he wants in the canyon, always hunting and always hungry. This is his canyon. The cougar feels the pain of hunger by this time, and he knows that smaller animals like the cottontail rabbit can usually be found around the wooded regions of his canyon. The predator's been found to play an important role in maintaining the always delicate balance of nature. Without cougars and wolves and all the various predators, the population of other animals would not be controlled. Their numbers would soar, and soon there would not be enough food. Many would starve. Thus, the whole amazing plan of nature would be eventually destroyed without the predator. The rabbit is quick and often difficult to catch, but the cougar has been schooled in a technique of silently stalking his prey ever since he was a tiny mountain lion kitten and used to accompany his mother on her hunting trips through the canyon. Nature's protection for the rabbit is his speed and his color, designed to blend in with the woody grasslands where he lives. But when a cougar's after him, it's the speed he's got to rely on, for the cougar has keen eyesight as well as hearing. Suddenly, the chase is over. Once again, according to nature's plan, the predator claims his prey. Man and nature living together. Nowhere is it more exciting to see than here in Cougar Canyon. The sound of a truck engine isn't heard often back this far in the canyon. 12-year-old Steve Benally's been waiting to hear the truck all morning long, because that means his Navajo friend Johnny Guerrero from Canyon de Chelly Trading Post is arriving to take Steve's family for a ride. Today's the day the whole family visits the trading post above the canyon at Chenley. Johnny always brings something for Steve's brothers and sisters. Today, it's a bag of lollipops. With no roads in the canyon, it's a rough trip. 18 miles by four-wheel drive truck back out to the trading post. So Steve's family only makes the trip about once a month. Steve's mother will take the rug she's woven to trade for flour and a few supplies the family will need. The family Hogan is many miles from the nearest neighbor. Young Steve is now the man of the house, ever since his father left and his two older brothers went to live at the Indian school at Chenley. Someday Steve will go off to school too, but for now, he's needed at home. Johnny's dad was divorced by his mother a few years ago. The Navajo custom is the same today as always. If a Navajo woman wants a divorce, she simply places her husband's saddle outside the hogan, and he rides off. All the kids love to visit the trading post. The trader always has soda pop and treats for the children, tobacco and cigarette papers for the adults. For Steve, a visit to the trading post is a chance for him to talk with his best friend, Walter Hayes. Walt's dad and mother just recently bought the trading post business from another family and moved to Chenley from Flagstaff, Arizona. Walter really wanted to move to the Navajo reservation, too. Gave him a lot more space to ride horseback. And since the family's relocated here, Walter's already buying his very own horse with the money he earns working for his folks at the trading post. He and Steve are always making plans to go riding together. And today, Steve's invited him to come back into the canyon for a couple of days to visit the family at their hogan. Of course, Walter gladly accepts the offer and tells Steve he'll be there tomorrow afternoon. Steve gave Walter directions as to how to find the hogan. It's easy to get lost if you don't know your way through the canyon. The only road signs are the ones the Navajos use, the ancient petroglyphs, left here by the early Anasazi hundreds of years ago. Without Steve's directions, Walter could be a long time searching for the tiny mud hogan, especially since the Navajos always build their homes in the most unsuspecting places to blend into the landscape perfectly. been up since daybreak, working at his chores so he'd be ready to meet Walter. The way the family hogan is hidden behind the trees, Walter would have ridden right past it, even with Steve's directions. All the members of the family have been busy at work since sunup, digging in the cornfield, hauling drinking water from the spring, gathering firewood. Walter's really happy to be invited to spend some time here with the family. Steve's mother welcomes him too. As long as Steve does his work, taking care of the goats and sheep, everything will be fine. Navajos work from sunrise to sundown, every day of the week. And that usually includes every member of the family old enough to walk. Walter's always been interested in Indians and the way they live and what they believe. In fact, if the white boy had his way about it, he would have probably been born an Indian. Steve already took the herd up canyon to the water hole earlier today. Since then, they've been grazing in the field around the hogan. So it's time to see that all of the herd of sheep and goats are rounded up, accounted for, and put into the pen for tonight. Steve tells Walter that tomorrow morning they can take the herd up to Canyon del Muerto together, to the water hole, and see some places Walter's never been before. The camp spot for tonight is one only an Indian could find. A narrow cave through the wall of the canyon, opening into a tiny little meadow, Steve's secret hideaway.
And Walter, my people had to work
After
very
building
hard.
a campfire and settling down to a dinner of homemade Indian bread and baked beans, Steve tells Walter some of the true stories about Canyon del Muerto, the Canyon of Death. That was the name given to this canyon by the Spanish, who in 1805 formed an expedition led by Lieutenant Antonio Narbona to fight the Navajo warriors who lived here and had been raiding the Spanish settlements along the Rio Grande Valley. At that time, this canyon had been a Navajo stronghold for nearly 150 years. The Navajos fortified themselves in a cliff dwelling and fought an all-day battle. But the soldier had guns, the Indians only bows and arrows. And so, when it was over, more than 100 Navajos were dead in the caves. The baskets of supplies and food they had carried up to the cave are still there. And to this day, it is forbidden for any Navajo to go there because of the evil spirits. There are other spirits in the cliff houses too, for even the old Navajos, many years before, felt the sting of sudden death from outside invaders. Pueblo Indians at war with the canyon dwellers would sneak into the canyon to ambush the unsuspecting. It is said that when a Navajo dies, his soul encircles the earth 4 times before flying beyond. That is what is written on the rocks. Here in the canyon, it is also written that some of the souls of the dead were lost due to the steep, high walls surrounding them. And many are still here, trying to find their way out of the canyon so they can soar away to the world beyond. Many times at night, you'll hear the cries of the lost. These are the souls of the dead ones, still searching for a way out of the canyon of death. Some have found their way upward, but only as far up as the cliff houses. There they are destined to spend eternity, walking through the crumbling ruins of the great cities, crying for freedom from their endless suffering. How Walter ever got to sleep after those stories is a hard one to figure out. But he did. Matter of fact, the only one having trouble was Steve himself. Seems Steve was having a dilly of a nightmare about his sheep herd and a hungry cougar. Steve had a good one, all right. That sneaky cougar had come right into the middle of his herd of sheep, taking his time and picking out the smallest goat to kill for his dinner. And nobody was around either, which isn't right. Steve never left the herd alone in the canyon, and yet nobody was there. Well, that's the way nightmares are. They seem so real, and then they don't make a lick of sense after you finally wake up. So Walter tells Steve to go back to sleep. That's what he deserves for telling all those ghost stories. Walter discovered pretty fast you don't sleep late out here in the canyon. The roosters, like alarm clocks, have you up at daybreak. After a breakfast of hot cornbread and coffee, the chores need to be done. The boys' job today is to herd the sheep and goats up canyon to the water hole. There was a good rain yesterday, so the hole should be full. every individual sheep or goat in the herd belongs to either Steve, his mother, or one of the other children in the family personally. You see, it's an old Navajo custom for each animal to have just one owner, instead of the whole family owning the herd together. Some of this herd belongs to Steve's two older brothers who are away at school. Even Steve's baby sister owns her very own goat. It's a big responsibility for Steve, taking charge of all the family sheep and goats. His mother, like most Navajo women, knows every animal in the family herd without ever having to count them. If two herds get mixed, Navajo women can separate them very quickly. They just know their own sheep and sense it immediately if any are missing, even with herds of 100 animals or more. The cougar knows that the water hole is an easy place to hunt. Now, normally a cougar wouldn't come around during the day where there'll most likely be humans. He knows that man is his most dangerous enemy. But when hunger sets in, common sense is sometimes overlooked. Speaking of common sense, the boys aren't showing a lot right now either. Steve's been told he shouldn't leave the animals alone in the canyon. His mother's warned him about the predators that sometimes prey on Navajo herds. And it seems Steve's already forgotten about the nightmare he had last night. Since Walter's never been this far into the canyon before, there's someone Steve wants him to see, just up the canyon a little way. There he is, the friend Steve wants Walter to meet. Now, it's not too unusual to spot a raccoon in Cougar Canyon. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of them here, same as in most other brush and wooded areas of the country. But this one's special to Steve. He's watched this feller grow up from a baby. Steve's seen him hundreds of times swimming in his private little pool. The main part of the water hole's known to every domestic animal in the canyon, and, unfortunately, to the wild ones, too. While the baby goats pretend they're grown-up mountain rams butting their heads together, the real nomads of the canyon, the horses, stop by for a visit. Everybody loves the water hole. Every Navajo boy is taught from a very early age to love nature all around him, to feel close to the animals. They're his brothers. Since Steve was a baby, he's learned to respect all living creatures. The Indians have many stories and legends about animals. To the Navajo, every animal has a personality of its own. Indian children spend many hours enjoying these little things that many white folks might consider as unimportant. That cougar's moving in close now, sizing up the herd, being sure there's no sheep herders around before making a kill. Our friend, meanwhile, is still putting on a show for the boys. Steve's been telling Walter about how at night the old raccoon sometimes brings his whole family down to the pool for a swim, but only at night. During the day, it's far too dangerous. For some reason, horses are usually the first ones to sense the presence of danger. So the cougar works silently, carefully, afraid of spooking the whole herd before he has a chance to single out one animal he wants to catch. Usually, either the youngest goat or else an older one that can't run away as fast. All the commotion brings the boys running, and just in time, too.
Over here.
The cougar's given up for right now. He is, by instinct, afraid of man. It was a close call, though. Now the boys have a big job ahead of them, rounding up the whole herd. Finally, the boys managed to get the herd back together again, while above them, on a ridge overlooking the canyon, a hungry predator watches his dinner being herded away from him. Steve would have been in big trouble if that cougar had succeeded in killing one of the animals. His mother would know in a moment that one was gone. And with his two older brothers away at school, Steve's the man of the family. The herd's his responsibility. Just to make sure everybody's home safely and accounted for, the boys decide to count each animal as they jump through the opening in the fence into their pen. And that's when Steve makes a terrible discovery. His sister's baby goat is missing. Cougar figures maybe he hasn't lost out after all. With nobody else around, this little goat should make easy prey. It's a long trip back up the canyon to the water hole. But Walter and Steve know they've got to find the baby goat before nightfall, or else one of the predators will. The Cougar's picked up a trail now. The goat's got a head start, but if he stays down on the floor of the canyon and off the rock cliffs, it'll be easy for the Cougar to catch up. So far, the boys don't even know the spot their missing goat is in right now. Steve's sure they'll find him safe back at the water holes. He's had strays wander away before, but they always seem to find their way back to water. They're almost to the water hole now. Suddenly, the boys spot some fresh tracks in the mud. It's the goat, all right, and the Cougar, too, both heading farther up the canyon. They better work fast now before it's too late. Luckily, the goat's gotten a little smarter. He's taken to the rocks. Out here in the canyon, even the domestic goats learn to be sure-footed and fast climbers, just like their brothers, the wild mountain goats. Now, if he'll just move on up higher before the Cougar spots him, he might make it. hoping they catch up with the missing goat quickly, not only because of the cougar, but because the boys are getting too close to Mummy Cave. To the Navajo, Mummy Cave is forbidden. Often at night, cries of the dead can be heard screaming out across the canyon from the ancient cliff dwelling. They've lost the tracks now, so nothing left to do but climb a ways and hope to spot the goat somewhere up on the canyon. The boys figure he must have started to climb one of the walls. Unfortunately, the cougars just about got that figured out too. Suddenly they spot him, but so does the cougar. Mummy Cave. The Navajos call it Chendi Cave, the cave of the dead. And now, Steve and Walter must climb up toward the very spot Steve's been warned about so many times. For that silly goat seems headed right into Mummy Cave itself. The cougar's starting to lose some of his fear of the boys now. After their last encounter at the water hole, he probably figures they're just not too dangerous. Not like some sheep herders who carry guns. The ancient stone footholds are the quickest way up for the boys, while the cougar finds his own way. Steve shouldn't be here, and that thought keeps eating away at his mind. He's trespassing in forbidden territory, climbing the same steps the ancient ones once climbed in a hopeless attempt to escape invaders who followed them, killing everyone in the cave. The cougars reached the cliff dwelling, and the goat can't climb any higher. It's a long way down, and Walter's not as sure-footed as his Indian friend. But they must keep moving. They must reach the goat in time, haunted cave or not. By now, the little goat's so spooked it'll be tough for anyone to catch him, even the boys. They'd better move in carefully. That silly goat's so frightened he doesn't seem to realize that if the boys don't catch him, the cougar will. But when a baby animal's been scared badly enough, seems the only one he'll run to is Mama. Cougar's getting bolder now, and he plans to grab his dinner before the boys have a chance to interfere. He's too hungry by this time to miss out on his meal again. Cougar's lost all of his fear of the two boys. Why, he's so hungry, he'd take on both boys about now, if he had to, in order to catch that goat. He's hungry, and he's mad, too. The boys had better watch their step about now. Looks like the goat's trapped now. He can't possibly climb out of that ceremonial kiva. The walls are too high. So Walter's finally got him. Or maybe Walter's caught in a trap himself. Steve's yelling did the trick. It seems the boys are in favor with the gods. They've rescued the baby goat. They'll just have time to make it back to the Hogan before sundown. And they've been protected from the evil spirits of Mummy Cave. Yep, I guess the gods are happy with the boys. And right now, Steve and Walter are pretty happy themselves. But that's how it is out here. The Navajos say, if you're brave and willing to stand up for what you know is right, the gods will give you strength and protect you. Anyway, that's the legend of Cougar Canyon.